I am very excited to speak with all of you today about this topic, which is certainly one that's very timely and also very near and dear to my heart. So without further ado, let me just give you a little bit of background about, and I know that Mike was gracious in his introduction, and I really appreciate that. My business, Pinion Solutions Group, is a boutique consulting firm that specializes in building award-winning cultures to accelerate business results. And we do this by aligning corporate engagement and culture strategies to drive bottom line impact and positive employee experiences. Our mission is to help companies thrive because their people flourish. And in working with us, many of our clients have achieved year-over-year recognition as a best place to work by prestigious lists like Fortune Magazine, Crain's Chicago Business, and the Chicago Tribune. And while the awards matter, it's really about so much more than that. The recognition translates into compounding business value as a marketing tool, a magnet for attracting top talent, creating reputational strength, and certainly greater financial success. So we're living in a world now where leaders can spend all day deeply engaged in work, and they might not even put on pants. So obviously that would be unthinkable in a traditional office environment that many of us are used to, but the COVID-19 pandemic has caused the world to rethink our values and habits in nearly every way. We've changed how and where we work, shop, educate our kids, take vacations, and even celebrate milestones. And embedded within this new way of life is how we connect and collaborate with one another. And this has huge implications for work and leadership. For decades, we've had the technical ability to switch to a virtual workplace, but only a small percentage of businesses have actually made that leap. So why? Well, FaceTime was valued, certainly, perhaps overvalued, and largely because of fear. Fear that we wouldn't be able to tell if employees were really working from home, fear that we would lose control over them, and perhaps most of all, fear over the lost connection with other people and the power of spontaneous interactions. But when the pandemic hit, hundreds of thousands of companies across the globe suddenly switched their workforce to a virtual one in a matter of days. And now it's hard for many of those businesses to imagine ever going back to work and being in the office full time. The pandemic has brought to the forefront the essential skills needed to embrace the new style of leadership, of virtual leadership. And that's easier said than done. Many organizations are really struggling with this transition. In a DDI study, Development Dimensions International, 2020 study of more than 15,000 leaders, respondents said that their weakest skill by far is leading virtual teams. And in fact, only 1 in 4 say they're effective at all at leading virtually. And that is double the rate of any other leadership skill. So while leadership in general packs a major challenge for people, it's clear that leaders are struggling extra hard to be effective without seeing their teams in person on a regular basis. So how do you build culture as a virtual leader? Well, first we need to understand what culture is. Culture is the foundation of your company. It's the way your organization behaves. It's how everyone at your company thinks. And it's critical to know who you are as a company in order to know what kind of people you want to attract, retain, motivate, and engage. And according to Merriam-Webster, I think the most appropriate definition here is a way of thinking, behaving, or working that exists in a place or organization. Simply said, though, it's how we do things around here. And culture is something that organically evolves every day through every shared interaction, email exchange, cat meme, or even conflict. Your culture is reinforced through the behaviors and interactions of every employee every day. So whether you're trying to or not, as a leader, you are playing an active role in creating the culture of your business, which means that you can create the culture that you want, and that can be very empowering. And culture matters for a number of reasons. Number one, the assumptions and belief of your employees drive their behavior. Their collective behavior determines business results. And the results measure performance and indicate if strategic objectives have actually been achieved. So the leaders that we have in place in our business greatly affect our company's culture. They're modeling behaviors, and if they're not committing to the values and the cultures that we want as an organization, then creating that culture is never going to happen. But culture is not about foosball tables, exercise balls, or even happy hours. Now, don't get me wrong, these things are great, but your culture doesn't always have to mean fun or alcohol. But the icons of your culture need to be authentic, further your mission, and inspire performance and results. The pandemic has really shown the hidden strengths of many corporate cultures, but it's also shown the catastrophic flaws of many others. A strong workplace culture will get you through a crisis successfully, and non-thriving cultures are 10 times more likely to be negatively impacted by business crisis than a thriving culture. So you can see that the business case is there. But since culture is built on shared experiences and informal interactions at work, how do you maintain a culture or even build a culture when no one is physically together? We need to focus on the most important elements of workplace culture: leadership, purpose, connection, flexibility, celebration, appreciation, and all of those translate to outstanding success. So first, and most critical, I think the pandemic has shown that as leaders, we need to lead with heart. Demonstrating empathy and emotional intelligence are the most critical factors for successful leadership. And these critical skills are closely aligned with higher engagement, lower turnover, and better productivity. And while these skills are essential for all leaders, they're even more important for those of us who lead virtual teams. Without seeing one another on a daily basis, it's easy for even good leaders to lose connection with their teams. We might start to ignore the stresses that our teams are facing, assuming that a lack of feedback and complaints means that there are no issues. Or we might overlook good work, forgetting to give praise. And in the worst situations, we might be absent leaders who only contact with our teams when an issue comes up. These pitfalls are easy to fall into, and the consequences are hard to overcome. When leaders don't show empathy, our teams have no outlet for emotions. That can lead them to become burned out, disengaged, and disconnected. And all of that can lead to low performance and even turnover. Great leaders build personal connection and demonstrate that everything that they do every day will have a direct impact on someone's life, good or bad. They know that they're not just dealing with employees or dealing with customers, but making a choice every day to improve another person's experience. And when you look at it that way, it can be powerful. Leading with heart means that you understand what drives your people. And the best way to do that is to find out what moves their heart. Find out what their dreams and passions are and do everything in your power to help them reach their personal goals. If you serve your employees in the best way, they will do the same for your customers. This will also create a bond with them and your company, and the more engaged that they feel, the better the energy they'll bring to your customers. So in each of these steps, I'm going to share some practical ways that you can demonstrate each of these capabilities and competencies. So some easy ways to show that you lead with heart. First of all, this one might sound silly, but it's critical to know people's names. And there's so many, large teams, and when we're managing global organizations, that might not be as easy to say, but know people's names and make sure you remember them. Know what motivates each and every team member and how they like to be recognized. If you don't already know this, ask them. They'll be more than happy to tell you. Acknowledge feelings of discomfort. Right now is a very challenging time for people, so acknowledge that and create an open forum for people to talk about what's happening. Give people your undivided attention, especially on video calls. Be aware of your nonverbal communication as much as your verbal. How you position yourself and how you engage with people in video is even more important than it is in person. If you make a mistake, admit your mistake and be sincere about it. You can demonstrate accountability and vulnerability by showing that you're human. Listen first and then offer guidance when people need it. Or better yet, ask for their opinion on the best way to approach that problem and then validate or redirect as needed. Compliment and recognize efforts. Ask how you can provide support to them and reach out often to your virtual team members because you don't want to lose that connection. We need to communicate vision and purpose. And as a leader, communicating vision and purpose is always important. In a closed office environment, work gets done in subtler ways. It might be easier for employees to see how their work affects other members of the team. They might overhear conversations about what other people are working on, get to hear the big picture in a different way. And it's easy to chat informally with teammates to talk through issues related to any change. Those drive-by meetings in the hallway or lunchroom interactions are critical. But with remote teams, it's easy for people to become disconnected from the vision and the purpose of the organization. And as the company goes through change, it can be hard to understand why those are happening. Without their coworkers around, it might seem like the changes are uniquely affecting that individual. And people might struggle to see how their own role has an impact on the future. It's up to us as leaders to translate company strategy into a vision and purpose for the team. They need to know that they need to help their team find focus and clarity and see how their work contributes to the greater vision. And we need to come up with action plans to help people move forward. When we're able to do this well, we can engage our team members not only practically, but emotionally, and help ensure that the team is performing at its very best. In times of crisis, we rely on leaders to keep us grounded. And that's why so many organizations have begun hosting, virtual weekly all hands meetings company-wide to share updates and address questions from employees. These calls provide an opportunity for employees to hear firsthand what's top of mind for executives and how, as a business, we're supporting our stakeholders, our customers, our employees, and even our communities. So communicating vision and purpose is important, but we also need to take the opportunity to link those messages to reinforce company values and show people that we're demonstrating those, especially in times of crisis. We need to build connection, but how do you build connection in a virtual environment? Your online social activities, certainly from coffee breaks to pizza parties and happy hours, can help, but these events really must be intentional and must be planned. Otherwise, you might be eating alone at your virtual pizza party or drinking alone at your virtual happy hour. Many employees are really craving the informal office interactions that stimulate creativity and encourage collaboration. When we switch to remote work, one of the biggest losses we face is that human connection with each other and with our bosses. And in particular, we lose those small moments of interaction, those drive-bys in the hallway or those lunchroom interactions, which can be critical. And even in a short conversation, a leader can set the tone toward a new strategic direction, give an update, or offer a quick moment of insight in those situations. But more importantly, those interactions are an opportunity for leaders to show empathy. These moments create a chance for us to listen and respond authentically. People need to feel that their perspectives are heard and valued, and that they've been understood and are respected. We need to address personal needs in addition to the team's practical needs to truly engage them. And this is one of the areas where leaders struggle most. It might seem reasonable to replace an in-person meeting or a casual hallway conversation with some scheduled phone calls or web conferences. But too many meetings, as we know, can decrease productivity and morale. We've all experienced and heard about Zoom fatigue. To avoid overbooking people, especially those juggling with childcare or other demands during the workday, ask for people's input into the meeting timing, cadence, and even whether or not their schedule is visible. This signals a level of collaboration, compassion, and fosters productivity in a way that doesn't feel like micromanagement. Over the past few years, the ability to show empathy and engage employees is consistently one of the lowest scoring areas across our leadership assessments. And with a remote workforce, it's even harder for leaders to find those moments to connect. But it's critical that we know how to maintain connection and to create these short interactions that form the base of the relationship with our teams, because they're critical to how people stay engaged, focused, and connected. This virtual workforce has caused us to rethink how we engage our employees, structure meetings, or incorporate inclusion techniques. In-personal interactions are truly those builders of connection, and we need to find other outlets for employees because that loss is significant. Some ways that you can build interaction and foster connection. A few easy steps. Build time at the end of each meeting to allow people to just hang out, engage, and ask questions. You could start your meetings with a check-in, a red, yellow, green light exercise. Ask people how they're doing. If they're green, they're energized and ready to go. If they're red, not so good, maybe distracted. Acknowledging that will help build that connection and that trust. And some people might be resistant to sharing that they're in a red light state, but you can overcome resistance to that by making the participation optional, creating a safe environment, asking for someone to, another leader perhaps, to even model that behavior and share that they're kind of in a red state that day. We need to set the tone and lead by example. We can schedule one-to-one check-ins for goals and well-being to listen and offer support where people need it. You can even make these walking meetings and encourage people to get some exercise and fresh air. And if you're leading a hybrid team, make sure that out of sight is not out of mind. Be aware of unconscious biases and the productivity differences between people working in the office and remotely. And make sure that the people in the office, if you're scheduling a meeting, make sure that the people in the office don't all gather in the same conference room while the remote people dial in on the phone. Encourage everyone to call in from their desks so everyone gets the same information in the same way. Ask for people who don't normally speak up to share their voice in meetings. Encourage that participation, not just from people who regularly speak up or offer opinions, but from everyone so they feel heard. And check in with people. Acknowledge that the challenges of working this way are difficult, and let people know it's okay to feel stressed, anxious, or uncertain. Definitely check in with people who seem like they're experiencing burnout, and if needed, refer them to alternate resources like your EAP. And encourage social connections like virtual movies, book clubs, coffee meetings, happy hours, or even lunch groups via video conferencing or chat rooms. Some people set up virtual co-working spaces, a video conference at an agreed upon time where people can simply work quietly in each other's virtual presence, like maybe they used to do in the office. And you can schedule weekly open office hours where people can pop in, ask questions, and check in. Teachers do that exercise a lot. Professors always have office hours, and I know that in the grade schools and middle schools and high schools, that's a regular practice as well. We can adopt that same practice in the work environment and make sure that people know when we're available to check in and use that time accordingly. The need for flexibility and well-being has become even more critical as the switch to remote work has truly opened up our personal lives to our colleagues, whether or not we intended it to. It's easy to catch a glimpse of someone's home life, their decor, hear a washing machine buzzing in the background. I've got some home repair work going on right now that might be causing some extra background noise. And we might even see a child in the background or even a young child crawling to their parents' lap, all on one conference call. The new integration between home and work leaves many people feeling vulnerable. People struggle to separate who they are at work from who they are at home, and they need more understanding and empathy from us than ever before. And because we're bringing our whole selves to work, employees need to know that they are being seen as a whole person with both personal and practical needs. They need assurance from us that their personality is accepted and all of their uniqueness is embraced. And above all, they need us as leaders to recognize that just as employees' personal lives are invading the workplace is invading their personal lives as well. And that can cause people to struggle to disconnect from work, leading to burnout and reduced work quality. The integration between work and life can cause people to question how and what they do fits in with their personal beliefs and feeling of purpose. And as a result, they need more support from us to know that what they're doing matters and that it fits in with a larger purpose. According to a study that I saw by the New York Times, 86% of workers were satisfied working with home, and only 1 in 5 wanted to go back to the office full time when this recovers. So we need to understand that as employees prove that remote work can be as efficient and productive as being in the office, we don't know what the work life or what the workplace is going to look like. We don't know if it will ever look like what it did before. So we also need to appreciate that some people can't work from home, but even still, their workplace looks significantly different than what it did before, because now we have social distancing and sanitation measures in place that were never there before.
Lisa, I have a quick question.
Oh, sure.
And feel free to just anyone, as you're doing this, I might not always interrupt Lisa, but if you have questions, you can just throw them in the Q&A, and I'll try to, give them to Lisa as they make sense. Have you seen companies be more willing to hire people who might be permanently remote?
Absolutely. Absolutely. This shift, this new remote workplace has caused a lot of companies to realize that they can attract talent now from anywhere, because if they can allow the jobs, and not every job can be conducted virtually. Some essential functions really do require that people are in the office, but this change has really shifted the candidate pool to allow companies to attract talent and hire talent from across the globe now. And so with that kind of understood, we need to be more conscious that our employees might be more open to job changes as well. So while it's easier to attract people, it's also easier for other companies to attract our top people.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So companies have really already adopted new recruiting and hiring processes, including virtual interviews that show that they can absolutely make those changes. We've had to change how we manage and assess performance, how we give and receive feedback and recognition, and how we connect and show appreciation. So even the benefits that appeal to employees right now are shifting. Rather than unlimited vacation days, paid parental leave and flexibility have become more important. According to another study from the International Workplace Group, 80% of employees said they would turn down employment offers that did not include options for flexible work arrangements. There's a renewed focus on mental and emotional well-being, as remote work and social distancing brings greater chances of disconnection, loneliness, and uncertainty.
Hey, Lisa.
Yes, sir.
As you just said that, we had a question come in about mental health, and have you seen that spike or change significantly? Just sort of seemed like an appropriate time to ask that, as you said that.
Absolutely. So EAPs, I think, are being leveraged like they haven't before, but a lot of companies are offering opportunities for mental health and wellness programs within the way that they are structuring their wellness programs. So virtual meditation sessions, virtual meetings with, I've got one client who's, I think on the call here, who actually has a psychotherapist who they've hired on a contract basis to come in and be available to people to help talk through some of the challenges of this pandemic. We've seen a lot of stress in relationship issues. So while the pandemic and shelter in place orders have been so great for many of us to spend time with our families and our kids in a way that we haven't before, it's been seriously awful for so many others who aren't in a healthy relationship and who aren't in a healthy family environment. There have been escalations in the number of divorces, child abuse, cases are not being reported as often, which is actually a really scary indicator because people feel as though they might not have that outlet to report abuse and violence safely the way that maybe they did before. They don't have that escape. So mental health and wellness are absolutely top of mind with most of the organizations that I'm working with. Does that answer that question, Mike?
I think so. It was a great answer. Thank you.
All right, good. So we need to leverage technology in a way that we haven't before. During this pandemic, technology has been the really critical component that has not only made our businesses successful, but has allowed our employees to collaborate and connect from anywhere. I don't know about you guys, but I wish I had Zoom stock before this pandemic hit. I could be retired right now. So we have all adopted video conferencing and adapted many of our work processes and practices to the amazing technology that's available to us. I joke that if this pandemic had hit even 5 years sooner, I don't know if companies would have been as successful in making the shift to remote work. But it's allowed us to push the limits of what's acceptable and really redefine what our new reality is. But technology should enable connection. It should enable connection. It can't replace human interaction. So we need to keep that in mind too. New technology does facilitate remote work, social distancing, and changing business needs, as well as client experiences, but also needs to help facilitate that connection and personal interaction. And it has to work as well remotely as it does in the office. It needs to be mobile enabled, and it needs to make our work process easier, not more difficult, especially as people work from home. But with great technology comes great opportunity, as we talked about earlier, for fatigue. Many people are working harder and longer as a result of this pandemic and being even more connected via technology. So as leaders, we can set the example and help prevent that fatigue by make one call each day video optional. Allow people to take a walk during that time, fold laundry, or do whatever they want. Make activities that aren't essentially required, opt-in events where people choose whether or not they want to attend. And instead of scheduling every meeting for an hour like we always do, schedule meetings for 45 minutes so people have 15 minutes back in their day to give their brain or even their bodies a break. And we need to reimagine cultural initiatives. Before this pandemic, company culture was created and reinforced with events like new hire lunches, pizza parties, wellness events, happy hours, even performance celebrations. In a virtual environment, we need to reimagine these initiatives. It's still possible to do all these things, but they require planning, purpose, and intention. Without planning, you might, again, end up eating alone at that pizza party or drinking alone at your happy hour. So think about those aspects of your culture that make your employee experience unique and how they can be adapted to a virtual or even hybrid work environment. Instead of face-to-face meetings, hold virtual meetings to make sure that all employees get information, updates, and have the opportunity to have values reinforced through those meetings. Record them if you can, so that employees who can't attend due to other obligations like caregiving responsibilities or other business conflicts can still participate. Some of those virtual wellness programs that we talked about a minute ago, you can do most of those. Anything that you were doing in the office can likely be done out of the office in a virtual environment as well. Yoga classes, walking challenges, different workouts, either in groups or, I've had clients create programs with a pandemic pal to help people lose that quarantine 15. And certainly don't forget to invite kids and significant others or other family members to join in. All of us could use a break and get some extra exercise and opportunities for relaxation. We can spotlight new hires and employee anniversaries through, different interactions, email notifications, sending them, having them scroll on your intranet or other website, and make sure that they include pictures in their new home workspace and with their new coworkers who are likely their pets and family. Those new hire lunches might look a little different, but that doesn't mean you can't still have lunch with your new hire. Send an electronic or even a physical gift card to Uber Eats, DoorDash, Postmates, or any other delivery company so that people can order their own food at the company expense and still eat lunch with you over a virtual environment. Some companies hold Monday motivation meetings to kick off the week on a positive note, or host month-end happy hours or virtual parties to share successes, whether it's accomplishment of team goals, employee achievements, or even staff birthdays. And if your company has them, make sure to leverage employee resource groups to host virtual events with discussion and development opportunities for specific populations of employees and their allies. You could even organize a virtual volunteer activity or replace your company picnic with a team building event. Organizations like Volunteer Match provide a long list of virtual volunteer opportunities, whether they're related to COVID-19 support or other causes. And then have employees share stories of how they served with their colleagues, because that builds connection as well. And certainly remember to make time for fun. We really, at this time, need to make fun a strategic priority. During a difficult time like this, people really need to kind of let loose. So one of my clients actually has a great sense of humor and created a virtual talent show similar to America's Got Talent with entries from employees across the country. The talents ranged from impressive to hilarious to just plain unique, but they had so much fun and showcased the hidden talents of so many employees. You could also host a completely virtual company-wide Bring Your Kids to Work event. And, that can be open to everyone, those with kids and those who are just big kids at heart. Feature story times, with executives, yoga classes, arts and crafts, how-tos for different DIY type events, dance parties, and even incorporate those talent shows. You could host a scavenger hunt. Send employees a list of things in advance to find in their homes and have them send in pictures and submit what they found prior to their next meeting. You can also host the scavenger hunt in real time and always make sure the winner gets a prize. You could build in different ways for people to get to know one another, either the two truths and a lie activity, or have people send in a random obscure fact about themselves in advance of a meeting, and have people try to connect the secret facts with the team member who it applies to. You'll learn a great deal about people and have a lot of fun. You could play Zoom bingo with phrases like, who heard, can you hear me on a Zoom call? Or, who wore the same shirt X number of days in a row? Or forgot / didn't bother to brush my teeth today. So those can be a lot of fun to incorporate either with a happy hour or as a standalone event. Virtual trivia games you can host, either using a game of your choice, or you can even hire companies to run these for you so that you can participate in the fun too. I even had a client build in a virtual magician into one of their conferences, and he was part magician, part illusionist, and it was a great way for the team to let loose and have a little bit of fun. And, you know, focus on appreciation. Appreciate. But you don't need a big budget or fancy perks to increase retention of talented employees. All you really need is the power of a simple thank you. Don't underestimate that thank you. The power of it is incredible. And when you create a culture of appreciation, it truly ensures success. So anything from handwritten notes to virtual rewards, if you've got a kudos or high five system, make sure that you leverage that. And certainly, excuse me, encourage people to share those success stories. So like everything else, recognition has a new normal. And it might not be the big recognition banquets or going out for a team meal, but instead we might be hosting virtual celebrations with smaller groups of people, or even in person with small groups of people. We probably won't be incorporating handshakes or hugs anytime soon, but that doesn't mean that what we do can't still be memorable, meaningful recognition moments, connecting our peers to our organization's purpose, to each other, and showing how, showcasing how people are succeeding at our organization. In the middle of times of uncertainty, those best connection moments really do connect and nurture people and express gratitude. I even give appreciation kits to new managers, including thank you notes, gift cards, and company swag to encourage them to regularly recognize and appreciate their employees. If recognition doesn't come naturally to people, sometimes you need to require them to make recognition a priority. So I've even worked with companies where recognizing employees is part of their bonus plan, and they need to demonstrate how and when they regularly appreciate and recognize people. So ideally, in that type of situation, your team won't know why it's happening, but they'll appreciate that it does. So, and we can't talk about creating a culture of engagement and connection without talking about the generational differences and what's important to each. So you can see on this chart that there are some significant differences, but there are also a lot of similarities. Now, Generation Z, who's at the top, makes up roughly 1/3 of our workforce, and it is by far the most diverse generation in our history. And employees in this generation are highly connected to social issues and want to make a difference in their jobs more than climbing the corporate ladder. In fact, 30% of Gen Z employees would take a 10 to 20% pay cut to work for a cause or a company that they care about. They also crave in-person connection and want to feel that they belong. They care less about the brand or reputation of an organization and more about a sense of community and well-being. And things like paid time off and a focus on healthier lifestyles, and again, that mental health. They thrive under leaders who mentor them, help them belong, and recognize their accomplishments. So you can see again that the generations are all more similar than they're different. And if we regularly connect people and their work to purpose, we can show that we care about them. We frequently show appreciation, and we do consider the impact of all of the generations in our workforce.
Lisa?
Yes, sir.
We got a couple questions I think that sort of fit well with the different generations working together.
Yep.
When you say there's any like a maybe some top techniques for being successful in like your new homework environment, especially for some of the older leaders? There were there with quotations.
So I think for the older generations who might not be as technologically savvy, first and foremost, having patience as they kind of navigate technology issues is one way we can show that we care about them, and even hosting some kind of tutorial types of sessions to show the different functionality and how they can leverage that technology better. I think that understanding that everyone, regardless of generation, is approaching this pandemic in a different way. And some people are more resilient and more appreciative and adaptable to change, while other people just really struggle. So it's almost as much about generation as it is about personality type or behavioral style. So understanding, again, each individual, what's important to them and how they like and need to work is really critical for leaders. We have a tendency to lump people all into one bucket and make assumptions based on stereotypes. And so we need to understand our own propensity for bias and work to overcome those. And that's part of creating an inclusive culture in society as well.
Okay. I think this sort of fits to some of the things you're just talking about now. One of the people on the call said that they have a lot of meetings where she works that are just audio, and she likes video, prefer video, feels there's benefit to it. Is there a way to maybe encourage using video, but also, understanding people, maybe different generations, backgrounds, just prefer audio?
Yeah, and I think sometimes, depending on what's going on at home, people just don't want to connect to video. It might also be an internet connection situation. Sometimes, if right now I'm doing this presentation with you all, my husband's working downstairs and my kids are both on Zoom classes. So we're pushing the limits of our connection, and the video sometimes creates connection issues that prevent people from being as effective and successful as they'd like to. So understanding why people are resistant to video might help to overcome that. Is it a preference? Is it a technology issue? Is it something else? And communicate, if you're if you're the one scheduling the meeting and it's your place to do so, you can think about, requiring or strongly encouraging people to be on video for certain meetings, but know when it's really important, or, is it that you need to have it or you really want to have it, and appreciate that just because you need it, other people might need something different.
Okay. And then I'll give a quick, Judd asked what age range is Gen Z. And I did a quick Google on my phone. It's the youngest people in the workforce. So they'd be like 18 to 24-ish, I think. Right. For the people working, it's also people younger than that too.
Yep. Perfect. Thanks for doing that for me.
No
All right.
problem.
Anything else before?
No, I think right now, yeah.
I'll wrap it up here. So a positive workplace culture isn't something, it's not like a utopia. You don't really ever achieve it and then kind of check the box and move on. It's an ongoing process that requires attention, intention, and even a little bit of love. So now more than ever, a positive culture is not a nice to have. It's mission critical for business continuity. And it's what will keep your business running during this unprecedented time when no one's looking, because we're off video. So the question shouldn't be, how can your company culture survive? It should be, how can it thrive? And when you deliberately design the employee experiences you'll have around the ability to allow people to continue to work remotely or to return to the office, do it in a way that maintains connection with people, increases the efforts to create outstanding virtual leaders who mentor and empower people rather than gatekeep and control. And if you need help, certainly engage a culture consultant who can aid in assessing what elements of your culture need fixing and how to create a plan to get where you want to be. Questions through the...
Awesome. There's a couple more. Some of them are a little more practical. So one of them is from experience as like a consultant in certain non-executive positions, but leadership positions like a controller, manager, director, on a consulting basis, like a short-term consulting basis. The person said that they've seen a hesitancy, when they were doing those in person, to be included in a lot of the in-person meetings because you're just a consultant. Have you seen less of that in a virtual world?
So I think it shouldn't necessarily be about the employment status of the individual, but rather, again, that need to be in the meeting and sharing, or hearing that information. So I'm seeing consultants engaged. I'm regularly engaged in meetings, from executive meetings to to staff meetings, to all hands. So those are, I think, if people aren't being included, they should ask to be included, or if there's a specific and legitimate reason why they shouldn't be.
Makes sense. Earlier, you talked about now that you don't have these like natural sort of in-person touch points. You have to be conscious of it. The mode for figuring out how frequently you should do it, which I believe is a very good one. You said ask the people, like if they're on your team, hey, what do you like? Right. And I think that is like what people should be doing. Is there anything else, like any other tools? Because I feel like I would have a hard time answering that question. Someone's like, hey, how often do you want to have these touch-in meetings? I would just say, don't worry about it. And I don't know if that's the right answer. I just know that'd be my instinct, or I wouldn't, I think I'd go to that because I don't have a good answer.
Yeah. So I think kind of leveraging whatever the old cadence was. So if you were having one-to-one meetings on a monthly basis, you could ask, hey, does that still work for you? Or would you like to meet more often? Or even, if you need more as a leader, suggest to people, hey, I'd like to connect with you a little bit more frequently. Is that okay with you? And I think just asking people goes a really long way. So many times we just assume and we do things without asking if it's okay. And we expect that other people will just adapt and adjust, or maybe we think that they want to have more interaction with us than they actually do. And having that trust, building that type of relationship that gives people permission to say no is critical and powerful. And in companies with a high level of engagement and trust, that's easier to do. I understand that is not the case for a lot of environments. And so as leaders, now we can, just because something might be status quo or the norm in terms of a practice or process, outside of this work time, doesn't mean that we can't reinvent our culture to be something that works more for us.
Are there any measures, tools, things that you think should be avoided that you've seen that are well-intentioned but just have not worked well?
I think requiring everybody to be on video, I think scheduling back-to-back meetings and not allowing people to disconnect. I think there have been so many companies that feel like, and employees too, that feel like, well, hey, if I'm working from home and they can't see me, I need to be accessible and available at every single point in time. And so, so bosses are texting and emailing at all hours of the day, and people are feeling compelled to respond. So I think that that's a big failure. I think that this environment also has opened up opportunities for harassment in a digital environment, where, you know, we're maybe not as sensitive to how those things would have been received, you know, in an in-person, face-to-face environment. We think we can hide behind technology and virtual chats and different things like that. So just being aware of the fact that that harassment might come from just creating so much stress where people feel like they have to be available 24/7.
Thank you. I think that was a good answer to a tough question without being able to open it up. So nice answer. Thank you again. It was a great presentation. I think I got a lot out of it.